Well, symptoms include abdominal pain, cramping, diarrhea, lack of energy. About 130,000 Canadians suffer from Crohn's disease, an illness that affects the lining of the intestines. And over the past 10 years, the number of cases in Canadian children has doubled. There's no cure, but a new study released today by researchers at the University of Ottawa and CHEO proposes a new way of treating the disease, and it involves targeting bacteria in the gut. Dr. David Mack is co-author of the report. He's also director of CHEO's Inflammatory Bowel Disease Centre, and we've reached him on the phone. Hello there.
Hi.
If there's this need to search for alternative treatments, what's wrong with how Crohn's disease is being treated now?
Well, there's a number of treatments out there, and one of the age-old ones has been corticosteroids, and they work well, but they have a number of side effects. There's been a whole slew of new treatments that have come along recently, and they work on suppressing the immune system of the patient, work well, but we're always worried about side effects. We don't know as much about long-term effects, especially if we give them to kids. And so we're always looking for new ways that might treat and hopefully less troubles with the patients.
So what did you and your research partners discover? What was needed in this treatment?
So the interesting thing was, this increase in Crohn's disease that's happening, and we don't have great explanation. It's not related to the genetics; it just doesn't change that much. So a lot of thought has been, well, what else could be at play here? And so we tackled what might be inside the gut, and that was the bacteria. So the bacteria, we all have them in us, and for most people, they do lots of good things. And these kids with Crohn's disease have different bacteria in there. And I don't know that it's so much, the differences between us, but what are these bacteria doing? So the bacteria in the Crohn's kids do different things that seem to affect the cells lining the guts of these Crohn's kids that makes them more prone to inflammation.
So we haven't targeted this kind of bacteria before then?
Well, whenever we hear bacteria, the first thing is, let's use antibiotics. And this is exactly the wrong thing to do. There's our colleagues in Manitoba found that if you use antibiotics, it may even trigger off Crohn's. In other studies we worked with our colleagues in the States, we found that kids with Crohn's disease who were on antibiotics had more bad bacteria in them than good, so it seemed to suppress the good bacteria more. So that doesn't seem to be the right way to go.
Is that because Crohn's, it's not a single bacteria?
I think it's a community of bacteria all interacting together and then interacting with the host, and that's what we found. That it's this massive interaction happening. So it's to think it's a single bacteria has been sort of tossed around for decades, and it's never really panned out. But I think looking at the community of bacteria and what they do interacting with the patients is the key thing that we've been researching.
So what could this mean for people living with the disease?
So I guess what we're wondering is, is there another treatment angle rather than give more and more drugs to treat the patient's immune system? And our thought is maybe we should look at a whole different strategy and target these bad bacterial functions. Now that sounds simple enough, but it may be complex. To change the way they function, maybe we have to change in what is getting in there, what they're metabolizing, producing out. So that's certainly one possibility. And the other is, rather than target a single bacteria, is there's populations we can target, or there are effects that's happening on the patients themselves. So it's a brand new kind of a paradigm of thinking. It's going to be hard because there's 10 times more bacteria in our bodies than there are cells in the body. So what we do to the bacteria, we sure don't want to translate into problems with the patients.
I mean, I don't even completely know whether we know this yet, but what kinds of new therapies would we be talking about if it's not, using stronger drugs, or if we are targeting those microenvironments, what kinds of things would we be doing to them? So
the bacteria, will they're just like us. They have to have something to feed on to function or overfunction or underfunction, and so one thought is, what we give them. In other words, what are we eating, what are we not eating. And that would be, kind of a pretty exciting thing if we can make persistent changes in there. The other is rather than target the living organism, can we target what's being produced out by the bacteria themselves, or block it going into the patient. So in other words, rather than target the patient, target these bacteria.
If we have those findings now from this research, how quickly could those kinds of therapies, those kinds of experiments start, or have they already?
Well, we're starting to. So in kids with Crohn's disease, when they first come in, they're all really sick, and we've used corticosteroids in the past, but now some of the kids were actually just putting them on, stopping their regular eating, changing their diet over completely to these formulas. And it's not as good as steroids, but it's pretty close. And so that's good for the first few weeks. But now to keep it going is the real issue. And we have an idea metabolically what to target. Whether we can get more specific, that's a great question. In some ways we're close, but in some ways we're pretty far away.
David Mack, thanks for your time today.
You're welcome.
That's David Mack, director of CHEO's Inflammatory Bowel Disease Center. He just co-authored a study that was published today in the journal Nature Communications.